Okay, I would be remiss if I didn't make a video about these latest recordings with Bob Woodward and Donald Trump. So let's touch on it. The recordings are as awful as they sound. They're not surprising to me. Um, Trump obviously knew how deadly this was and the ramifications of the pandemic and what it could mean for the country and people's lives, the the economy and so on. He obviously had Fauci and people, experts around him telling him these things. I'm sure on a daily basis. And he told Woodward that he knew it was deadly, but he didn't want to stoke panic. Now, I don't know how on earth you can believe Trump when he tells you he doesn't want to create panic. This is the man who fabricated an entire caravan of people from South America and Central America coming up through Mexico, and they were going to invade the United States. So let's not talk about creating panic. He also every day on his campaign trail about Joe Biden talks about how if Joe becomes president, the stock market will crash. You'll be poor. Joe wants to defund or abolish the police outright. He actually said Joe Biden doesn't like the Bible and wants to hurt God. They're going to abolish the Second Amendment. So please, okay? All he does is create panic when it is advantageous to him and his political career. So if you actually are falling for the talking point of him saying he doesn't want to create panic, you are a cultist, a typical Trumpist, and there's really no help for you. And in all honesty, too, I'm just so sick and tired of these people. Just 100%. If you're a Trump supporter to this day and you are still, you're in a cult, you are 100% in a cult. You're a cult member. One of the hardest points for a cult member is to realize they're in a cult, and when people tell them that, they laugh it off and they don't, oh yeah, I'm in a cult. You're in a cult. And there's no reasoning with these people. There's no logic that's going to get to them. They don't value evidence, so there's no evidence they are going to present to them that's going to change their minds. We just have to outnumber them at the polls, plain and simple. And we'll deal with the Trump supporters once their leader is defeated, because they're still going to be among us. They're still going to be your friends, your family, your coworkers. And we'll deal with them after November 3rd. We'll try to deprogram as many as we can. But as of right now, I'm just sick and tired of, honestly, discussing anything of substance with them, because it's a complete waste of goddamn time. And that takes me to the one talking point that does kind of make sense, where people are questioning whether Woodward holding on to this information that he had he is unethical, and he should have came out sooner because he could have saved people's lives. I'm not really sure if he could have saved people's lives, because I don't think it would have changed a damn thing for Trump and his supporters. It's not changing anything now. So why would it have changed anything on February or March if he would have came out with it? It doesn't change anything. There's nothing you're going to do or present or tell these people that's going to change anything. Now, just from an ethical standpoint, or whether it's the right thing to do to hold on to that information and not present it publicly, it does seem a little unethical to me. Now, we don't know the stipulations of this interview, though. It could have been presented to Trump that, this interview is taking place for my book. So whatever is said in this interview is not going to be released to the public until my book comes out. That could have been a stipulation of the interview. And if Woodward would have broke that stipulation, who knows if there's any kind of legal ramifications he could face from Trump in the courts. I don't know. We don't know the stipulations of the interview. It could have also been that wasn't the stipulations, and he could have still came public with it once the interview was conducted. So there's a lot of missing parts and information there to really give a definitive, strong opinion on whether or not Woodward should have came out with this information. I do think, in side A, if he had to hold on to it for his book and those were the stipulations and there are some sort of legal ramifications if he comes out publicly before then, it does make kind of sense, at least from his own standpoint, from, preserving his own money and potentially his book and his self-respect for the promises he laid out to Trump. Then yeah, it makes sense. If there were no stipulations and he held on to this information, ethically it does seem wrong. Now, would it have changed anything? No, I have no reason to believe it would have changed a damn thing for a single Trump supporter. And if you have some sort of evidence that you think it would have changed something, please present it to me. And if you think it's unethical or it was ethical or whatever your opinions are on Bob holding on to this information and waiting till now to go public with it for his book, please let me know in the comments. Let me know how you feel about that, because it's again, we're missing some pieces to that puzzle. But going back to what it means for Trump, I mean, he knew, and he didn't, even if, and his defense is, why didn't he, Woodward go public with this if he thought it was such a damning thing for me to say? So basically his defense is, why didn't someone stop me? His defense is, if you guys knew this was terrible, why didn't you stop me? Why didn't someone come and stop me? That great defense. So let's see how that one works out for you. Trump supporters will eat it up like normal. Make no mistake, like, let's be 100% crystal clear, as lucid as we could be. There are some number of people in the thousands, because we're approaching 200,000 dead. There are some number of people in the thousands that died, and those deaths can directly be attributed to Trump and his administration and Kushner and some of these other bad actors that done terrible things during this pandemic that can be tied to them. Like, there are some people that died because of the inaction or the stupid actions that they took that led to people dying. 100%. There's no way that that's not possible. And again, it's one of those situations where, unfortunately, it's not going to change anything. He's not going to drop in the polls. People aren't going to come to their senses. Us who are fighting against him and are going to vote Biden, it's not like, oh my God, we know he's stupid, he's malevolent, he's vile, he's depraved, he's all about himself. We know these things. And I say he's stupid because it's stupid because he says he doesn't want to create panic, which is a lie, but he still didn't even do anything to take the proper steps to stop a disaster. Okay, so he says he doesn't want to create panic, but he created a disaster worse than it had to be because he didn't do much of anything properly to get it under control. And I got some news for people. He's still not taking it seriously. He's still not taking it seriously. So even in light of these recordings coming out, and he's like, oh, why didn't Woodward come out with it earlier? And, why didn't anyone try to stop me, basically? And I didn't want to create panic. Well, you're still not taking it seriously, right? So when is panic warranted? When were you going to panic? When there was 100,000 dead, you still weren't panicking? 120? 150? When was even not even panic? When was the urgency? Where was the urgency? And when was the urgency going to inject itself into the scenario? Are we still waiting for a certain number of deaths, a certain number of job loss, GDP to go down? What are we waiting for? For the urgency, the correct procedures, the proper precaution? What are we waiting for? And you don't have to create panic by alarming the country and getting everyone to understand the gravity of the event and what to do in order to mitigate as much loss of life and economic as possible. You can do all that. A good leader can still do all that while not panicking everyone. It's possible. It is extremely possible. But he's not a good leader. He's a terrible president and an awful human being. And there are some number of people that died because of the way he's handled this. And some of those people are your friends or friends of friends or family or coworkers. And we have nearly 45%, 50% of the country that still approves of him, and he's going to garner 50 million votes, 55 million votes. That is a strong indictment of how screwed this country is. You need to look no further than to see everything this man has done or hasn't done, how he acts, what he does and says on a daily basis, and then realize that 50 million people are going to vote for 4 more years of that. Look no further than to understand how awful of a place this country is currently in. So those are my thoughts on the Woodward recordings. I'm not surprised in the slightest. It's par for the course. It's not going to change anything for his supporters. His defense of what he said is laughable. And yeah, we just need to go and make sure we put an end to this madness on November 3rd. And then, like I said, we will deal with the Trump cultists after November 3rd. But first, we have to remove their leader.